This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. I'm back at you this week with another terrific video story. This one is titled, Man Blindsides His Cheating Wife with Divorce. And she says, "You knew?" And he says, "Yep, you better lawyer up." Now she's begging him for another chance, wouldn't you know it? So let's get into this story and see what went on here. She starts off and she says, "My world came crashing down on October 26 when my perfect husband sat me down and told me he knew about the affair I'd been having and was in the process of filing for divorce." Boom! He just hits her with that right out of the gate. My first reaction was shock, as I had absolutely no idea he knew. My feelings then turned to horror when I thought about how he must have felt. Regardless of what you may think of me, I never meant to hurt my husband or my family. Are you kidding me? He knew everything about the other man and gave me details, so there was no way I could maneuver through this by being untruthful. I had never lied to him before, so I confessed and told him everything. Do you really think she told him everything? I don't think so. I was so sorry and begged him to look at me and tell me everything would be all right, but he didn't. He was no longer the loving, supportive husband I knew. He was cold and emotionless, like he had rehearsed this meeting for weeks and had a response for everything I said. On the other hand, I was a wreck, and all I wanted was to explain what happened and have a rational discussion about how I could make things right. He wouldn't hear any of it. I tried approaching him to comfort him, but he kept me away and asked if I was ready to listen. I continued trying to reason with him to hear him out, but he kept rejecting me, so finally I gave in and said I'd be silent and listen to what he had to say. He started off telling me he had an attorney and that I should get one too. Hearing this, I became distraught and had to excuse myself to gather my feelings. When I returned, he again told me I should get an attorney to represent me. Next, he explained that his attorney would be filing divorce paperwork within the next 2 weeks, and then we would have to wait several months for a hearing as our state has a cooling off period of some kind. Now, I think that's ridiculous. I read where many of these states, you have to wait 3 months, 6 months, a year. Why? It's your business. If you want to file for divorce, it's your business. You should be able to do it. He told me until our divorce is finalized, he'd be staying at our home, but I'd need to move into our spare room. While still very upset, I felt some relief knowing he wasn't leaving and I'd have at least a few months to work on him to prove myself. Now, that's one of the things that really can be an issue in these kind of situations, because now you're going to be in the same house with her and she is, like she says, going to be working on you to try to break down your defenses. After this, he told me I had 48 hours to tell our daughter. She's only 12, and the thought of how a divorce would impact her broke my heart. Well, you should have thought about that before you cheated. She loves her father, and I knew that conversation would be difficult, but I underestimated just how much. She didn't take it well and continues to treat me cold, even though since our discussion, she's told me she loves me multiple times and has never stopped talking to me. Well, lady, I'd have to say there you're very lucky, because in a lot of these cases, the kids don't talk to the cheater. While I was having the conversation with our daughter, my husband went to visit my parents and his and told them. He didn't tell me beforehand, so when he came back and told me, I was beside myself and then had to go into damage control as they were all livid with me. It wasn't like I was trying to downplay what I'd done. I just would have liked to have had the opportunity to tell them first, or at least go with him when he told them. Even though he did this, I didn't get mad, as this was all my fault. And of course, the reason why she wanted to be in that conversation with him is she likely wanted to steer the narrative. He's always been a great husband, father, son, and son-in-law. Well, if he's been great, why did you cheat on him? I look back now and can't believe what I've done. At the time, I was thinking having the affair would just be a temporary diversion. No one would ever know, and no one would get hurt. It was just something to add intrigue and a sense of risk to my happy but predictable life. And I underlined that because a lot of times with these women, especially these housewives, they're cheating because they're bored or their life is boring or it's too predictable. If it is, then go out and do something. Don't go cheating. The man I was seeing felt the same way, and we discussed this often. I never intended anything to come of it, and definitely never intended for it to destroy my marriage or harm my wonderful husband. Well, if you thought having an affair was not going to harm your husband, then you are stupid. We had an agreement that if either one of us felt our spouses were getting suspicious, we'd immediately end things. We didn't think that happened, but obviously one of them did and told the other because he was confronted by his wife the same day my husband spoke to me. We don't know which one found out first or how they found out, but it's clear they'd been collaborating. The ground rules they established for us are too similar, although she forced him out of the house. This all happened exactly 6 weeks ago today, which brings me to the present day. As promised, my husband had me served with divorce papers at our home 2 weeks after he talked to me. He could have just handed me the paperwork, but instead he chose to have a courier serve me just to make things more dramatic and to make me feel bad. I didn't get upset though. If doing that gave him some satisfaction for what I did, then it was okay with me. I've still not gotten an attorney, but now I'm thinking I'll need to. Now listen to what she says here. The guy I was seeing stopped by where I work this past Monday and told me his wife was going to file a lawsuit against me for breaking up their home. He asked if my husband was going to sue him because his wife told him he was. He said his wife told him that she and my husband want not only to destroy us mentally, but financially as well. I told him my husband never mentioned this, but it doesn't sound like something he'd ever do. So she thinks her husband is a nice guy. Also, I let him know I couldn't ask my husband as I didn't want him to know we'd spoken. So you see what I mean? These cheaters and these liars never change. Here she is still meeting with this guy, but she's going to let on to her husband, oh, I've never talked to him. Now, before I get any hate, this was only the second time I had spoken to him since everything blew up. The first time was a phone call the day after where we discussed what happened and officially ended things. I have no interest in ever seeing him again, although I do wish him and his wife the best and hope they can repair their relationship. Back home, things at times seem almost normal when my daughter is around, but when she's not, my husband and I really don't interact much. He doesn't want to spend time with me and doesn't want to talk about anything unless it's about our daughter. If he does, it's all one-word answers like no, yes, or I don't know. Well, I don't know is not a one-word answer. At least you're getting 3 words out of him there. I put on a brave face, but deep inside I'm dying in fear I may have lost him. Let me correct you there. You have lost him. He's never been like this, so cold and calculating without any consideration about what or how I'm feeling. Well, did you have any consideration for him when you were laying there taking it from that other guy? One possible opening I have is we are scheduled to go on a family vacation to Florida in 2 weeks. We've had this scheduled for months and my daughter has been looking forward to it. 2 of her cousins are also coming with us, so my husband and I will have time to spend together while the girls are enjoying themselves. I hope the trip can help heal the divide and I can illustrate to him how much I love him and that we need each other. If you have any other suggestions, please share them. Thank you for reading this, and that's the end of her original post. Now, she does come back 6 days later with an update. She says, I was going to wait until I had more to say, but some people have been making accusations that aren't true, so I want to clear up some things. First of all, I had been completely faithful to my husband and never even thought twice of another man before this mistake. I love my husband, my life, and my family, but I was in a mental rut at the time. It was nothing my husband or family did. It was all me and a reaction to how I was feeling. See, here again, a woman is responding to how she's feeling in the moment. She's not thinking about the repercussions. She's thinking about her immediate feelings. To broaden my horizons, I got a part-time job. It got me out of the house and meeting new people, and I really enjoy it. Through my job is where I met the man I had the affair with. He doesn't work there, but I came in contact with him there, and that's how things got started. It started out innocent enough, but as time went on, we got more friendly until one day we met outside of my work. It started with a coffee, then the next time it was a lunch, and then the next time we crossed the line. Well, it sounds like the next time they must have had lunch at the Y. Just once became just one more time, and then another, and before you knew it, 3 months had gone by and we were getting confronted by our spouses. So she was carrying on this affair for 3 months. Now listen to this. This is crazy. He's not better looking than my husband, doesn't make as much money, and is not as well put together as my husband. He was just someone different, and we both were kind of at the same place in life, and that's how it happened. So you can be out there, you can be the best husband possible or the best boyfriend possible. You could keep yourself in shape, you can make money, you could buy her everything, treat her like a queen, and yet she still may go with someone who's just a different person, just to mix it up a little bit. Unbelievable. In hindsight, I see how wrong that was, and so does he, and that's why I'm trying hard to save my marriage. My husband has every right to divorce me, and in the end, if that's what he wants, I'll give it to him without objection. Until then, I plan to do everything I can to change his mind. People who don't know all the facts should not be so quick to cast aspersions on others. We're all human and fallible beings who deserve some level of forgiveness, she says. And that's the end of her first update. Then she comes back with a second update 17 days later. This is after they get back from their Florida vacation. She says, we just got back from our Florida vacation. My daughter, husband, and I, along with our 2 nieces, had a wonderful time. We went to Disney and Universal, and it was warm enough for the kids to be able to swim even when we were at the ocean. While we all had a great time, I wasn't able to reconnect with my husband as I planned. He spent most of his time entertaining the girls to avoid spending time with me. Well, I don't blame him. When we did have quiet time at the end of the night, he insisted on keeping the door between our adjoining hotel rooms open so we couldn't discuss anything sensitive. We slept in separate queen beds, and when we did talk, he gave me the same one-word responses. I didn't get upset or break down. I just went along with it and did my best to ensure everyone else had a good time while I was dying inside. You see how everything is centered around her? Oh, I was doing all this for everybody else, making sure that they were having a great time, even though I was having a terrible time inside. On the flight back home, I came to the conclusion this was likely going to be our new normal for a while. Realizing this, I decided I probably should start looking for a lawyer as the hearing date was approaching fast, though still a few months away. Yesterday, I called around and set up appointments with 2 different lawyers for later this week. I don't want to do it, but the situation is forcing me to take this action. I'll update again if anything of substance happens after those meetings, and that's the end of her second update. Now we're going to take a look at some of the comments she got back, but before we do that, I want to remind you, if you've liked what you've heard so far, be sure to hit that like button. That will help out this channel tremendously and also help to get this video seen across the planet. Now let's go on and take a look at some of those comments. The first one is from a woman. She says, your post is written in the first person. Everything is poor me or I feel bad. I know you're hurting and regret the situation you're in, but did you ever once think about how your little diversion would impact your husband and daughter? And the OP responds to her and says, I wrote this from my perspective. How else am I supposed to write it? As for your question, yes, I thought about my family every time, and that's why we tried being so cautious. So she's saying, oh yeah, I thought about my family, but I went ahead with it and had the affair with the guy and just told my affair partner, oh, let's just be cautious and keep this on the down low. Crazy. She goes on and says, I wish they'd never found out. Bingo, that's what she really wanted. But then she goes on and says, but most of all, I wish I'd never done what I did. She says, I'm truly sorry for everything. No, you said it correctly there. You wish they'd never found out. That's the only thing you're sorry for. The next response is from a guy. He says, think about this from your husband's perspective. What do you bring to the table now? You've been exposed as a liar, a cheater, and judging from how long you've been married, you must be pushing 40. Why would he stay with you? Why would he stay with you when he could be out on his own and free to do what he wants, either solo or with someone better? Ooh, probably younger too. He says, in this case, the two birds in the bush are a better bet than the dirty bird he has in his hand who just shit all over him. So you know that old saying, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush? This guy's saying, no, you in his hand is not better than what potentially could be out there because you've already shown what you're all about and you're not worth it. And finally, we got another response from a woman. She says, if you were bored, why didn't you just talk to your husband about it? The last thing I would ever think to do if I got bored would be to go out and blank another man. Amen to that, sister. The OP says, I did talk to my husband, and he's the one who suggested I get a little job, which I did. I'm not blaming him, I'm just answering your question. I'm also not blaming my job because I love it. The only person I blame is myself. Do you really believe that? I think she's blaming her husband for not forgiving her, but she doesn't want to come out and say it. And now she comes back with a final update so we can see how everything turned out. And this final update came 8 months later, so a lot has gone on in her life since then. She says, I'm now divorced. I gave everything I had to salvage the marriage, but my husband was set in his ways and wouldn't give an inch. See what I told you? It was like he was on train tracks with no willingness to bend or make compromises. Well, you want to stay on track when you have a goal. You want to go straight to the goal. You don't want to have anything pull you off left or right. So I say hats off to your husband for staying on track and completing the divorce like he intended. In the months leading up to the hearing, he continued treating me the same as I described in my earlier post, only speaking to me when I asked him something and then only giving short, often terse answers. Well, what did you expect? As the day grew closer, he did open up more and showed a concern for my well-being. At the trial, my attorney asked the judge to consider counseling for us, but my husband was allowed to speak and told the judge he'd prefer not doing that, explaining that no matter what the counselor said, he would be unable to reconcile with me. Good for the husband for standing his ground and saying he doesn't want to go to counseling. She goes on and says he said he forgave me, and in parentheses she says, which was a surprise as he hadn't told me that. And then she goes on and says, but he did not want to be married to me. Hearing him tell someone else that really broke me up. After everything was said, the judge granted the divorce, awarding me what came out to be about 42% of our marital assets, 3 years of alimony, and a small child support stipend for our daughter. So being unfaithful and breaking up the marriage, she still gets this very lucrative payout. Now you see why so many men don't want to get married. My lawyer was disappointed with the outcome, stating we should have gotten 50% and at least 5 years of alimony based on how long we were married. She said the judge has flexibility in these decisions and was more sympathetic to my husband, which I fully understand and accept. Well, that's a switch that the judge was sympathetic to the husband. I haven't heard that too many times. I was expecting the lower amount, so I wasn't surprised, and it didn't bother me as I was too sad thinking about the end of my marriage. One of the worst things that happened recently when we sold our house and had to move out. I put so much of myself into that place to make it a safe and comfortable home for us, and just like that, it was gone. Well, you should have thought about your house when you were laying there having that affair. You didn't think about it too much then, did you? She says it sold fast and we got an above market price, but closing the door for the last time was one of the worst feelings of my life. My husband and I have since bought new places with our proceeds. We live just over a mile apart. Oh, here's another couple living just a mile apart. That's not good because she's going to be checking in on you all the time. I don't think that's a good idea. I opted for a ranch and he has a 3-story townhouse style with a garage on the bottom. My daughter has her own bedroom at both places and she floats and stays at wherever she wants when she wants. At first, she was spending 4 to 5 nights a week with her father, but recently has started splitting her time equally, which makes me feel good. The relationship between my husband and I now has gone from feuding spouses to good friends and co-parents. We still look out for each other and talk frequently, but I know it will likely never be more than that, as he's told me 1,000,000 times. Well, it's good he's made that clear to you that you're never going to go beyond what you are now, but why is he still talking frequently to you? He shouldn't be doing that. She says, I accept that now and I'm getting used to this new normal, though I'd trade my previous life for this in a heartbeat. He also let me know he has no plans to sue the guy I was seeing and has released any anger he has for him and me. Now think about that statement that she just made. You would think, hey, she should be glad that he's forgiven her and he's released all the anger. Nope. Listen to what she says next. She says, I'm glad he's done that, but in some way it seems he doesn't really care about losing me. So it sounds like from what she said here, she'd rather see him mad and upset and maybe jealous of her and her affair partner instead of being indifferent to her. That's why I said, guys, indifference is always the way to go. As for the other man, he and his wife are still married, though it's not that they are trying to work through things. From what I've heard secondhand, his wife is dragging things out to make it hard for him and is trying to drain him of all his resources. I know what he did was really bad, but at some point you just have to let go, but she's not the type to do that. For all I know, she still could be planning to sue me. After the divorce was finalized, my husband told me how he found out. According to him, the other man's wife got suspicious somehow and ended up hiring a detective. He tracked us for a few weeks and gave the evidence to his wife, who then contacted my husband. My husband's attorney stated this in court and told the judge he had concrete evidence to back the assertion. He didn't have to show it though, because I didn't dispute it and fully acknowledged the affair when the judge asked me about it. As for me, I have no plans to date anyone. Now listen to what she says next. I'm really a one-man woman when it comes to love. Well, what about that other guy you were banging on the side? That sounds like more than one man to me. My husband is that one man, so pursuing anything else would just be a waste of time right now. Maybe when our daughter is out on her own, I'll feel differently, but that's what I feel today. I'm going to leave it right there and plan to sign off of here for good, as I really don't use this app anymore. Thank you for following my story, and that's the end of her story. And I think her husband handled this thing just right. Once he found out, he didn't rush in and, confront her. He thought about it. He actually went out and, of course, was talking to an attorney. Then he confronted her and told her the way it was going to go down. And he did it with calmness, and he handled her with indifference. So I think from that perspective, he handled things brilliantly. The only thing I would question now is, now that they are divorced, why is he still in frequent contact with her? He should only be in contact with her if there's something going on with his daughter, and for no other reason. Now I want to take a look at what I think are some of the morals of the story. The first one, men typically like to have predictability and control in their lives, while some women, and I probably should say most women, prefer turmoil and drama. Now that totally sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, who wouldn't want predictability and control in their lives versus turmoil and drama? Many women do. They want the drama. Next. Many women act on their feelings without first thinking through any repercussions that may follow. And this doesn't just pertain to cheating. This actually pertains to just about anything. I've seen situations where women have gone out and bought a $600-700 dress, worn it one time, and then they get their credit card statement and say, oh man, why did I buy that? Now I'm upside down and I'm going to have to pay this bill. Or I've seen women go out and buy a very expensive, impractical car. And then once they start getting the payments, they're like, oh, this car doesn't even fit my needs. I don't even like this car. Now, I'm not saying every woman is like that, so I don't want to get any hate mail from people, but a lot of them are. Next. Cheaters generally do not regret having affairs, no matter what they say. They only regret getting caught. Remember that. So if you're ever in this situation and the person says, oh, I just regret what I did, I'm so sorry. No, you're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. Next. When faced with infidelity, it is best for the betrayed to handle the cheater with calmness and indifference, just like this guy did in this story. And finally, remember, marriage is a binding legal contract that generally doesn't favor men. If you know that and you still want to go through with it, the only advice I would give you is to make sure you cover all your bases and do your due diligence before entering into it. So those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story, and how do you think this guy handled the situation? Would you have done anything differently? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe, and I will talk to you on the next one.